I guess I should start by saying I'm not on drugs. It feels stupid just writing this because I've never touched anything like that. I smoked weed in my senior year, once, and it made me sick. I've never been in contact with any hallucinogens or legal highs. Before I tell you what's been going on, I want you to know that. Because this is going to sound crazy, like I've just ripped it out of the latest bestseller. I don't know much about this app, but I know you can put up your paranormal experiences in hope of someone out there having an idea of what's going on. That's what I need right now. I need one of you to tell me what I've seen, because after careful deliberation, I'm starting to think I'm actually losing the plot. Okay, so I'll start from the beginning. My name is Holly. I'm 18 years old and I'm currently studying creative writing and linguistics at Centerville College. I feel like I should give you some kind of background about me, but I don't think it's important. I just want to tell you this because who else am I supposed to talk to? My parents? No way. They'll think I've finally lost it. So, I'm telling you. Hopefully one of you knows what's happening. Maybe it's not just my college. Anyway, here goes. Everything started when I got an email with my new class schedule for this coming semester. I was eating lunch with some friends when the notification popped up on my phone. Maya Sparks was talking loudly about a date she had ditched in the middle of Starbucks because he wouldn't pay for her drink. And I was struggling to take her seriously when she was waving around her brand new iPhone 11. I don't have designated friends, I'd say, but I do hang around with most people from my English class. They're pretty chill, and I figured it's either follow them or spend the majority of my time in my dorm room. I still haven't managed to get over the hurdle of basic communication with them, so I just sit and listen to the buzz of their conversations. Anyway, Maya had our table immersed in her story and was exaggerating every word with insane hand gestures. I was half listening. The cafeteria was pretty quiet that afternoon. I was halfway through my mystery meat burger, anticipating the climax of the story, which was coming. I could tell by the girl's facial expressions. My phone vibrated in my lap and I glanced down. I had been idly scrolling down Instagram before Mia announced she had so-called tea to spill. Skimming the email, I figured nothing had changed. I'd already heard from the others about the professors and workload, so there was no point reading everything. But something caught my eye. I'm used to my classes starting at 9 and ending at 4. It's been like that since I started in September. Except for this time, according to my new schedule, I had a night class. It didn't make sense. I know I didn't apply to one, but I wasn't seeing things. I had my usual classes, and then a gap, and then a night class from 9 p.m. to midnight. Night classes here are normal. My roommate takes them for Spanish, since she has a long-distance boyfriend who lives in Spain. But night classes are just that. They're usually there for students who want to learn something new. My roommate did ask me if I wanted to join her in the Spanish classes, since the girls' dorms are right next to the college. I had politely declined. I use my nights to either call my parents or binge-watch trashy Netflix shows. Squinting at the yellow-colored block on my schedule, I peered at the text. English 16000-8, Introduction to Film. Tuesday, Thursday, 9 p.m. to 12 a.m. The class was in the English building, but I didn't recognize the room number or the professor's initials. I didn't think much of it for the rest of the day. It was probably a mistake, but I figured I'd check it out with student services just in case. When my classes were over, I headed to the main reception. The woman behind the desk was my mom's age. She was reading a dog-eared copy of Harry Potter, and I couldn't help wincing at the coffee stains tainting the back cover. She looked confused when I choked out that there was some kind of misunderstanding, and then gave me a long, withering look before turning to the ancient-looking computer in front of her. She started typing, her fingers dancing across the keyboard, dust flying off the keys. I was in sort of a daze, wondering if her computer would load a basic YouTube video, when she turned back to me with an exaggerated sigh. Behind me, two older boys were wrestling each other and laughing loudly, trying to push each other out of the line. Either stop acting like children or take it outside, alright? You're not in high school anymore, boys. You look like seniors, you should know better. The boys stopped automatically and straightened, the two of them muttering apologies, and the woman nodded with an eye roll before turning her attention back to me. She settled me with a smile, which didn't quite reach her eyes. "Oh, it's no mistake, Miss Charles," she said, her gaze flicking back to the computer screen. The woman stabbed the monitor with a manicured fingernail. "It says here that you have been put down for that particular class, Introduction to Film with Professor White." I did my best to nod. "Ah, right," I said, struggling to maintain a polite smile. I could sense the boys' stares, their gazes burning into my back. "Is there any way you could remove me? I think I've been mistaken with someone else." The woman shook her head. "I'm afraid not, Miss Charles. The class is compulsory." I nearly choked. "What? But I don't understand. I didn't sign up for any classes, and I'm not—" "There is no mistake." The woman was growing impatient, and the queue building up behind me were murmuring. I could feel my cheeks starting to blaze with embarrassment. "Holly Charles, you are expected to be in room 16000-8 at 9 p.m. tonight until midnight. If you have any problems, I suggest you talk to the professor. Now, is there anything else I can help you with?" I nodded. My facade had crumbled. I wasn't going to stand there and act polite when my free time was being snatched from me. "Actually, yes," I said with a smile. "Could I possibly speak to the professor? I do think there's been some kind of misunderstanding." The woman leveled her gaze at me. "Miss Charles, if you want to talk to Professor White, I expect you do it on your own time. If you want to know why you have been put into this class, might I suggest you take a look at your grades?" It was a hard blow, but I just smiled like an idiot and made a quick getaway. I wouldn't say my grades are bad, but they aren't the best. I love the creative side of my classes, like writing stories, but the other side, like analyzing poems and pieces of literature, I can't seem to be able to get my head around it. I've been told I'm excelling in the creative side, but as for everything else, I'm failing miserably. The extra night classes suddenly made a hell of a lot more sense, and I felt stupid for standing there arguing with the woman. It was pitch black when I finally made it out of the student services building. The girls' dorms are only a 5-minute walk from campus. I grabbed a coffee from the campus Starbucks and took my time walking back to my dorm. A guy was sitting on my roommate's bed when I got back. Though, it's normal for Cassie to have random guys in her room. I ignored him, dumped my bag and coat, and fixed myself some food. There was leftover pizza from the night before. Not exactly healthy, but it was filling. I spent the rest of the evening just chilling out. The class started at 9, so I ended up rewatching Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I passed out at some point with my laptop in front of me. When I woke up, Cassie and her latest hookup were arguing about something trivial. It was nearly 8:30, according to my laptop. I jumped up, managing to knock the empty plate off of my bed. Cassie threw a stuffed toy at me in greeting. That's how we communicate when she has a guy around. I wanted to ask her why she was doing it with random guys when she had a Spanish boyfriend, but maybe that was a little insensitive. Cassie and I worked as roommates. We're not best friends, but I consider her as someone close to me. I did get a few words out of her when I got ready for my night class. She was hanging upside down from her bed while the nameless guy was cross-legged typing on his phone. Every once in a while, he'd show her the screen and she'd break out into laughter. "Where are you going?" Cassie straightened up, her dark hair a frizzy mess in her eyes. "Are you going to a party?" "Night class," was all I said, flashing her a tired smile. "What?" Cassie lay back down with a light laugh. "I thought you didn't want to throw your nights away." "It's not like I had a choice." I told her that before grabbing my bag and leaving quickly before she could respond. It was 9 p.m. exactly when I found room 16,000-8. It was a lecture hall. The place was huge, though there were only around 15 or so students. A screen was being set up at the front, and I braced myself for a movie night. I knew next to nothing about film studies, so I was planning on keeping my head down. 2 kids sat in front of me, a boy with reddish-brown hair and what sounded like an Aussie accent, and a girl with short blonde curls. They were talking animatedly, and I wanted to talk to them. All it took was leaning over my laptop and introducing myself, but I couldn't bring myself to speak. My phone vibrated and I glanced down at my lap. A text had popped up on my notifications from my mom. "Now, Mom. Study hard, sweetie. Love you." I needed that. Some kind of reassurance urging me to keep going. I tapped on the message and started to text back when someone tapped me on the shoulder. Twisting around, I found myself staring at a tall boy with dark hair and a frenzied look in his eyes. He shoved his phone in my face. "Have you seen this girl?" The tone of his voice startled me. I started to shake my head, but my gaze caught his phone screen. There was a photo of a smiling dark-haired girl who looked like she was mid-laugh. I shook my head at him. "I just started." The boy's eyes darkened. He pocketed his phone and leaned towards me, his warm breath grazing my ear. "Get out of here." Jerking away from him, I frowned. "What?" The boy looked like he might answer before a voice sounded out. "Mr. Tate, what are you doing in my class?" I followed the voice. A man had entered the room. He was maybe my dad's age with graying hair. He wore casual jeans and a t-shirt, and there was an amused smile pulling at his lips. "Is there a reason why you're in here, or are you here to piss me off?" The 2 kids in front of me stopped chatting and turned their attention to the professor. All around the room, the other kids followed suit. I expected the boy to leave, but he scowled at the professor. "You know exactly why I'm here." The man folded his arms. His smile was challenging. "Do tell, Mr. Tate." "Isabel," the boy spat. "Where is she?" The professor inclined his head. "Mr. Tate, I'm afraid I haven't seen Miss Suarez in a while." He cleared his throat. "If I do see her, I will make sure to let you know. Now, I have a class to teach. I'm sure you have somewhere to be." The dark-haired boy opened his mouth to argue, but the professor was quick to cut him off. "Now, Mr. Tate." To my surprise, the kid turned and walked out, slamming the door behind him. In front of me, the blonde giggled to the red-haired boy. "Wow. Wow indeed, Miss Chase." The professor was all smiles again. He nodded to the class with a wave. "Good evening, everyone. Now, bear with me while I set up the projector. Today, you will be watching Les 400 coups, also known as the 400 blows." When the hall erupted into groans, he laughed. "It's good. It defines the French New Wave." "Is it in black and white?" The blonde lay her head on the redhead's shoulder with an exaggerated yawn. "Can't we watch something interesting?" The professor nodded with a smirk. "Yes, it's in black and white. And Miss Chase, might I remind you, you are here to learn, not to be entertained." The blonde leaned back in her chair with a chuckle. "All right, you got me there." While the other students chatted amongst themselves, I psyched myself up to raise my hand and announce my presence. Everyone seemed to know each other and blanked me. But when I was raising my arm, the screen in front lit up in white light, and the professor was back at the front. "All right, so use this session to take in the movie, and next time you can take notes and we can have a discussion. For now, why not sit back and enjoy the movie, Though, in case you do want to take notes, feel free." He pointed to the redhead next to the blonde. Mr. Wilder, I've sent a docs file with some pointers to your email. The boy nodded. Thanks, Teach. I shut off all of the tabs in my laptop and took off my jacket and got comfy. Now, the professor clapped his hands. Shall we begin? Except a movie didn't start playing. The screen was still lit up, but nothing came on. I expected it to be a glitch of some sort and looked around, waiting for the other students to start murmuring or laughing. But the other kids had straightened up in their chairs, all of them looking directly at the screen, where a small black dot had appeared in the center. It looked to be pulsating and blinking rapidly. I struggled to properly focus on it. And that's when it happened. I don't know what it was. I felt my arms drop to my lap. My body slumped forwards as if falling from my control, and something else taking hold of it. I couldn't move. Opening my mouth to cry out, I couldn't. My gaze was glued to the pulsating dot, and I couldn't look away. I couldn't look away. Okay, the professor's voice sounded louder in my ears. Just like last time, I want you to focus on the dot. I tried to scream, but my body wasn't mine. I had no control over it. A noise started up, some kind of buzzing or a whirring, which felt like it was digging into my skull. The air felt strange around me, like it was alive, prickling with electricity. At the corner of my eye, the professor was a row in front of me. He loomed over a girl with pigtails. The noise grew louder in my ears, an incessant buzzing. It took me a moment to realize it was coming from the two kids in front of me, the blonde and the redhead. Like the others, they were staring forwards, but I could have sworn the blonde's desk was trembling. Lena, the professor snapped. I know you can do it. Try harder. There was no reply. The girl, Lena, couldn't hear him. None of them could. They were in some kind of trance. The noise seemed to waver before collapsing into a dull screeching. This time, the blonde's notebook shot off of the desk. She hadn't moved. I know she didn't move because the blonde was frozen. Above us, the lights flickered. I was staring at the dot, which was bouncing across the screen, when something popped. At first, I didn't know what it was, but something hit me. It was warm and wet. It oozed down the front of my face, a scarlet smear I was in denial of at first. It couldn't be, I thought hysterically. But it was. It was red. I saw red. I knew it was red. Something red had hit me, but I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. The noise had stabilized, but something inside me knew that it was Lena that had popped, and that it was Lena that was covering me. Lena's blood was covering me. Her brains were covering me. There were pieces of her skull on my desk. Pity. The professor's voice was ringing in my head, and the dot was still dancing, twirling around the screen. He cleared his throat. He was talking to someone, but I don't know who it was. You were doing so well, Miss Daniels. The professor hummed. Don't just stand there. Clean her up and mark Miss Daniels as failed. And then he was jogging up the steps towards me. No, not me. He was heading towards the kids in front of me. My best students, he beamed. I noticed there was red on the redhead's desk. It was dripping. I don't know if it was him, if he was the one bleeding, or if he too was covered in Lena. I had to concentrate on something. I had to focus on anything that wasn't the warm and wet blood stuck to my hair and staining me, painting me in her. It was paint, I kept telling myself. Yes, I was covered in paint. Paint. Kenji. The man leaned towards the frozen boy. I expect more from you after yesterday's session." The boy didn't respond. He didn't move. His expression was frozen, brown eyes glued to the screen. I waited for it to happen to him. I waited, oh God, I waited for him to pop. The buzzing started up in my ears again, and I felt it, like a physical entity climbing into my skull, a swarm of bees feasting on brain tissue. The air around me swam. I felt it prickle, tiny needles sticking into my skin. The professor leaned further, his hand whipping out and gripping the boy's hair. Kenji's body was limp, his head lolling, but his eyes didn't leave the screen. "Do it," the professor hissed. "You have all been subjugated, so I expect you all to deliver." Maybe I was hallucinating. Maybe I was seeing things because my mind was a whirlwind. Until that moment, Kenji's hand had been on the desk, palms down. The noise was buzzing, was wavering, growing erratic. The boy's hands clenched into fists and then flexed. His laptop in front of him seemed to jerk, and like invisible hands were wrapping themselves around it, the MacBook lifted into the air, hovering. Kenji's hands flexed once again, and the laptop dropped back down. Next to Kenji, the blonde was doing the same thing. Her hands were balled into fists and then coming apart, and her textbook was hovering in front of her before dropping in sync with the laptop. I could only see the two of them, but from the sound of gentle thuds around the room and pencils and pens falling back onto desks, the same thing was happening to the other students. "Oh, sweet Lily. I don't even have to ask you, do I?" The professor chuckled before heading back to the front. I don't know what happened after that. I couldn't move. I don't know how long for. My mind seemed to shut down. But I never tore my eyes from that screen, from the black dot. At some point, the red had been taken off of me. I don't know how. Maybe it wasn't even there in the first place. That's what I kept thinking. That's what I kept hoping. It felt like a century had passed when I finally blinked. My body was mine again. The lights had come on, and all around me my classmates were stretching in their seats and turning to their friends, chatting. My hands went to my face to peel at the red still tainting my skin, but there was nothing to scrub away. Nobody was screaming. Not even me. The professor was back at the front. "All right, 400 blows. What do you guys think?" "Boring," Lily retorted with a laugh. She nudged Kenji, who was packing up his bag. The two of them were like me. There was no red. Lena was no longer covering them. "I'm pretty sure Kenji fell asleep." The boy laughed. "I did not." He rubbed at his eyes. "I thought it was pretty good, actually." My gaze went to where Lena had been sitting. The girl was gone, and there were no traces of her. No blood, no red, no deep cardinal straining her desk and chair and the floor beneath where she had sat. I could still see her, the pigtails I had subconsciously thought were childish. Her blue eyes when she turned and smiled at everyone, her lips curved around the end of her pen. "All right, that's it for this session." The professor was beaming. "Nice work today, guys." Kenji and Lily jumped up, and there was a moment when I thought they were going to start screaming, when the true horror of what they had been through registered in their heads. But they didn't scream. Lily grabbed Kenji's arm and nuzzled into him. Their voices sounded strange, alien, like I wasn't really hearing them. "My place?" He nodded with a grin. "I have Crash Bandicoot on my Switch, so I can beat your ass at it." The blonde shoved him. "I'd like to see you try." I don't know why I was paying so much attention to them. I wanted to talk to them. I wanted to ask them what the hell had just happened. But my mouth wouldn't work. I left the class, and the second I was pushing my way through the door out into a blizzard, I threw up. I was on my knees in 2 inches of snow, heaving up my crappy meal from earlier. And someone was talking to me, shouting at me. But their voice was barely registering. I could still see the dot wavering in my peripheral vision. It was right there, teasing me, mocking me. "Hello? Hey you, what happened in there? Are you okay? Do you need me to call someone? Look, my name is..." I pushed past him and shook my head, swiping bile from my lips. It was warm, like the blood, like Lena, spilling down my chin. I had to press my lips together to stop myself barfing again. "I'm fine," I heard myself say, forcing my legs to carry me. I felt weak, like I was going to collapse, but I willed myself to keep going. My body was on autopilot. I don't remember coming home. I'm wet and cold, and I can't stop throwing up. I've showered 4 times, but I can still feel Lena on me. I can still feel her on me. Get her off me. Someone is banging on my door. Cassie's asleep, but I don't want to wake her. I don't want to scare her. Please, you have to help me. Am I crazy?